got into one of my old jackets.
Ooh.
Obviously, I'm eating well. Okay. We're continuing to some degree with the basic metaphor of gardening as a metaphor for how you're supposed to tend your inner self and your mind and stuff like that in order to make your garden grow, right? Brilliant stuff. And I have to tell you what a weird mind I have. When I saw the title of this week's speech, Enriching Our Soil of Possibilities, what was the first thing that entered my head? Manure. It wasn't manure, actually. It was something like manure. Anyway, that's what entered my head. And we're going to look at it, at least to some degree, first off, about our past. But one of the things that I want to point out in advance is that when you're looking at your past, do you think of it as something that happened to you?
No.
It's a question, okay? And if you answer that question yes, then you want to reread The Science of Mind because things don't happen to you. They happen through you. And anything that is in your past is part at some level of your own decision-making process. I can't explain exactly how that works or why it works, but that's a basic principle of this philosophy, is that you co-create the experience of your life with spirit. Okay, so everything necessary. I'm going to start this speech a little bit with an Ernest Holmes spiritual mind treatment. Or alignment. I like alignment better. Anyway, he said, I enrich my soil of possibilities, nurturing a fertile ground for my dreams to grow. Everything necessary to the full and complete expression of the most boundless experience of joy is mine now. Not a bad thing to kind of say to yourself every morning when you get up, right? So know this, see it. That's an important aspect of this, see it, to be able to actually see in your own mind the fruition of your mind treatment, of your alignment. Be able to say, okay, I can see my garden, whatever it is, some aspect of my life that I want to grow, I can see it. I can visualize it actually being in existence in my life right now. That's an experiential thing that happens prior to it occurring in the outside world. Okay, so Holmes also said, every man must pay the price for that which he receives, or woman, and that price is paid in mental and spiritual coin. Everything, those words are they're all-encompassing. Everything you receive is paid for with mental and spiritual coin. So that means the things I don't like in my life, I paid for with some sort of mental and spiritual coin. Oh my God. That's an eye-opener. So when the time comes that we can repeat this alignment over and over and over, I enrich my soil of possibilities, right? When you can do that, then you'll know it is effective in your life because it will show up as what we call a demonstration. It will show up as an experience or a condition in your life. When you actually begin to have that joy which is yours now, and you can say, oh my, I have so enriched the soil of my possibilities that my life is now flowing through me into my experience. So what is the past? Trials, obstacles, instances of personal growth, and all of these act as nutrients that enrich the soul of our inner life. And of course they do. when we create something or co-create something with spirit, it doesn't mean that it has no life of its own, because within us, the experience we create is also a teacher to us. Oh, I created that. What does that teach me about life? How did I react to it? How did I exist through it? How did I gain strength by it? And so when you consider the obstacles you've overcome, each hurdle that you were required to like dig deep into your own psyche and see that which needed to be fixed or changed or reaffirmed or restated in some way that would enrich the soil of your possibilities. You're going to pay for everything with mental or spiritual coin. The moments of growth, both small and large, play a crucial role in enriching our soil. And each step forward, no matter how small, adds to the richness of our inner soil and our inner life and our outer life. And we get future growth out of that. Now, one way, and this is what I'm going to talk about mostly today, one way to enrich the soil of your possibilities is to acknowledge one of the great powers that you have. And that one way to get our dreams to grow is to understand this immense power that each of us has been given. Each of us has a unique experience. We're individuated, and we are individuated onenesses of the great oneness. And we have free will. Now, it's important for us to know about free will because it is the primary ingredient of creation. Your consciousness, your choice, is a primary ingredient of creation. So we're going to talk about free will a little bit today. And any examination of free will is at the heart of New Thought philosophy and science of mind. And free will is our ability to choose without any external or even internal clamps, limits, our ability to choose. And when there's nothing inside of us or outside of us that can control our choosing, then we have free will. Now, you could think of free will as the privilege and responsibility of choosing what we shall think and therefore choosing what we shall experience. You know, I think that that's the great horse pill of science of mind. To say to myself, every experience I'm going to have from now on out, Georgie boy, I am creating. Oof. And to take responsibility for that, I think requires strength of character. So I really want to applaud all of you for being here today. It shows great strength of character. So as spirit is able to create each one of us, it creates infinitely, right? So you, with your consciousness of free will, are able to create infinitely in your own life within certain boundaries. And we're going to get to the boundaries of that in a little bit. So we exercise free will in a very personal, individual, and unique way, because but we do so within the rules and laws that are set up in the universe. So there may be internal, external conditions that we allow to affect our choice. Okay, but those are choices too. They're just not apparent choices. I'll give you a good example. In my own life, I had traumatic life when I was a child. My mother tried to kill me, and that affected my decision-making ability for a long, long time. And I could convince myself that that happened to me, but I could also say, okay, at some level, I must have chosen all those reactions as a way of dealing with life. Sure, I chose them with an immature mind, and sure, I chose them as a child, but I still chose them. Anyway, so anything that triggers us is still in the realm of our choice. You don't think you are choosing to be triggered? Yes. All emotion is preceded by a judgment. Everyone. If you're afraid, it's because you think something is going to harm you. If you're sad, it's because you think something is happening that distresses or upsets you. You are always at choice at some level. So you could think of free will as a philosophical spectrum. So at one end of the spectrum, you have determinism, which says that everything that you are or going to be or are doing right now is a product of the past. Or you could be in the Thomas Troward camp and say the past is not precedent. Okay? So this is this big spectrum from some things are determined to no things are determined. I'm in the no things are determined camp, and you can look at your life and decide exactly where you rest in that spectrum. Do you believe that all of your life is your responsibility, or do you believe that most of your life is your responsibility, or none of your life is your responsibility? It's all up to you. That's what I like about this kind of gathering. I'm not reading from the Bible. I'm not telling you what you should think. I'm giving you input. And you do the thinking. You do deciding. You are your own spiritual authority. Nobody else can make these decisions for you. Free choice decisions, by the way. So you get to choose where on this panorama you reside. Some things outside of your right to choose, and if so, what are they? My personal stance is that I am totally responsible for everything. Everything in my life. I believe that as an expression of spirit, I have chosen my entire existence and every experience in it. So every moment of my life, I'm making a choice. I'd say one important thing to learn about choices is that you cannot live a choiceless life. It's not possible. Even if you say, oh, I'm not going to choose right now, that's a choice. Right? That's a choice. Everything, you're always continuously choosing to go this way, that way, drive this, be that, say this, not say that on a regular basis. And in this place, it is very important to recognize that choice must also have power. In other words, if you think you have choice, but it has no power, then it's just wishful thinking. But if you have power, but no choice, then you're an automaton, you're a robot. But if you have both power and choice, and your choice does have the power, that's the way this is set up, then you can outpicture a life that you wish to outpicture. I think it's one of the things that immediately drew me to this philosophy. It sucked me in immediately. For the first time in my life, they told me I wasn't a victim. I'm not a victim. Because there's no power in victimhood. None whatsoever. But as soon as you say, I am responsible, you have power. Why? Because you have the power to choose a different way. You have the power to be different. And that power is monumental. So this power is always creating our experience out of our thoughts, our beliefs, and our feelings. And we don't control this power. Now, isn't that interesting? Once you made the decision, now you don't control it. You can't tell spiritual law how big or how small or how wide or how tall or how it's going to run or anything. It's not like you can turn it off. You can't turn it off. It's always on, and it's always doing everything it's going to do based on what you put into it. I think that's fascinating because when I first started in this thought, maybe my thoughts have to be more powerful, but no, that isn't true. Spirit provides all the power necessary for the creation of your experience of life. You provide what Ernest Holmes in his philosophy calls a mental tendency. Okay? You provide the mental tendency into which your good can be poured. And I have a bathtub-sized mental tendency, but you could have a thimble-sized one if you want. That's your choice. I would choose bathtub, or maybe even swimming pool. You could choose swimming pool-sized mental tendency for the good of your life to get poured into. So you don't control that. The mold or form our mental atmosphere, and I can form that myself consciously with skill. That's another thing that we sometimes forget, that the ability to think and to think into that power, the more skill we have at it, the better off we are. So take science of mind classes, because it will hone your ability to think properly. If your thinking is riddled with limitedness, it's going to be a problem for you. So you learn to think bigger. You learn to think with more clarity. You learn to think with more precision. And you learn to think with more love. And everything follows from that. So what are we? So we're kind of like musicians, right? We can bang away on the piano with no training and produce whatever it is we produce, or we can actually learn to play and produce music. And I think that's a good metaphor for the kind of life changes you can do in your life. So it's a matter of practice and commitment and learning. The self with the big S part, that is, I can't see right now, don't know why, is over all others and contains all others. My divine spiritual self, right, is totally above and outside of this frame of reference, the physical side of life, this plane that we're on. And I will align to know that my physical self and my small s self and my big S self are in alignment every day. I'm going to know that I am not separate, that I am one with spirit, and that spirit is only out for my good. I think it was Einstein who said that the only question, really important question in the universe is the universe benevolent? Is it friendly? And once you've answered that, everything falls into place. The universe is for us, behind us, with us, all the way, trying to help us at every level. Okay, so what can't you do with your free will? I'll outline a few things you can't do. I cannot do away with my own free will. Can't do it. And I can't do away with yours. Okay? I can't void any spiritual law. I'm not quite sure exactly how you would void a spiritual law with your free will, but I mean, you might attempt to. What are spiritual laws? There are some spiritual laws that are obvious to you. And one is that you're perfect, whole, complete, immortal, eternal, and infinite, right? There's several spiritual laws. Well, you can't void any of that. You can't decide not to be immortal. You can't decide not to be infinite. Well, you can do that, but it isn't going to have any effect. Okay. You cannot choose to be out of the presence of God. Can't do it. You can pretend that there is no God. You can pretend to live outside of the presence of God, but it doesn't change anything. You are, in fact, living and moving and having your being inside that oneness all the time, no matter what you think. Now, you can choose to be not aware that you're doing that, but that doesn't change it either. So now, I'd like to invite you to join me in knowing a few things. There is only one spirit. Everything is spirit and expression. I am that divine expression. And I know this is true for me, and I know this is true for you. You are that divine expression. Now, you have been given an immense, overflowingly powerful, wonderful gift to exercise, to outpicture your experience, and that is free will. Do you feel free to choose? Do you? You feel free to choose? I'd see a bunch of nodding, please. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, when I ran into this concept the first time, it was so monumental to me that we immediately, Brigitte and I, signed up for classes at Science of Mind, started going all the time. We even considered becoming ministers. We went to our first year, we went to a Silomar and visited with all the bigwigs and everything. And this whole idea of having that kind of personal power was so magnificent and so mind-bending and so heart-opening. That's another thing that I would not have believed. Was essentially an intellectual concept that is heart-opening. Because if you want love in your life, you know that you need a mental atmosphere of being loving. If you want success in your life, then you need to know in your heart that you are success itself. You need to choose success, choose love, choose hope, choose strength. I choose all of that. And I love you guys. Thanks. George.